This podcast is part of the Democracy Group.
Welcome. We are talking politics and religion without killing each other. I am your host, Corey Nathan, and I am so grateful to have a place to talk about faith and politics and all these big ideas in our culture with all kinds of interesting, accomplished folks of goodwill in good faith. It is an honor to announce that our program is now part of the Democracy Group, a network of podcasts that examines what's broken in our democracy and how we can work together to fix it. And I have a feeling we're going to be doing some of that today, examining what's broken in our little world here and how we can work together to fix it. Remember to subscribe if you haven't done that already. Hit the subscribe button, or some apps have it as like a follow button, so do that. Give us a good rating. If you like what we're doing here, just like leave 4 stars, 5 stars. It really does help. And if you write a little review, that's even more helpful because it helps us rise in the ranks so other people can find out what we're doing here. You can find us online. Our main site is politicsandreligion.us with the AND spelled out, politicsandreligion.us. Or you can feel free to connect with me on all the social media apps. I'm on a lot of them. Some of them I don't even realize I'm on. But Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Post News. I am at Corey S. Nathan. That's Corey with an E. C-O-R-E-Y, S as in Sam, Nathan, at Corey S. Nathan. Like I said, all that helps get the word out so more people can join in this conversation, just like the one I'm having today with my buddy, my hometown pal, John Deroian. John and I grew up together in Central Jersey, Bruce Springsteen country. Are you a Bruce fan or not?
I'm a Jersey fan, so anything out of Jersey, I gotta love.
Blues Traveler, Bruce. Jersey, Bruce Springsteen, yeah. Bon Jovi, Sinatra,
Corporal.
There you go. All right, so we see each other now and then at reunions and stuff like that, but we also stay in touch online. What I've appreciated about John is that there's often stuff we disagree about. John's not shy about saying what he disagrees with, but he's always respectful, and I really respect that. Not only that, sometimes he shares a perspective I hadn't considered, so I'm grateful for when he pipes in, and I didn't think of it that way. I'm grateful for him being candid and on stuff we disagree about, but also every once in a while, John's open to something that I say that he hadn't considered, and I find that's all too rare, so I really appreciate being connected with John. I wanted to bring him on the program to see if we can, what the program is. Talk about politics and religion without killing each other. So, John, how you doing, man? It's so good to see you.
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be here. Good to be here.
Thanks for taking the time. So, I thought a good way to start would be if, folks can get a sense of who you are. If you could share a little bit about where we grew up, what kind of work you do, your family situation, whatever else you like to, whether you're a Yankee fan, Mets fan, whatever you want to share with us.
Isn't everybody supposed to be a Yankee fan? That's like,
oh, shit. We're going to have to stop this interview before it starts.
It starts there. Yankee love over here. So I'm still here in Central Jersey. I live only less than a mile from where I grew up in Manalapan. I'm in Marlborough Township. And Central Jersey is an actual place. Some people don't know it exists, but it's not South Jersey and it ain't North Jersey. It's right here in the middle, close to the shore. I still live in the area. I grew up in the area. I work in Brooklyn. I'm in construction, blue collar. And I just love it here. I love growing up in Jersey and I love staying here. It's where my roots are. Yeah. And it's where I feel comfortable.
Yeah, no, every time I go back, I miss it so much, so whether it's just something just like the green on the trees or the smell of the air, you could, from where we were growing up, you could almost smell the Atlantic Ocean. We were so close to it.
Well, the only thing you're smelling today is forest fires from Canada, so today wouldn't be a good day for that. But for the most part, that's what it is. That Jersey air, that shore air.
Yeah. How are you dealing with it? Are you just staying inside, or how are people dealing with that smoke?
Well, people are back to running around New York with masks because I work in Brooklyn, so everybody's in a mask today. I don't know that the mask is helping. Maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we won't. But it's wild. This morning it wasn't so bad, but my office is next to my construction site, and all of a sudden the sky just got yellow. It's like it looks like Red Dawn out there. It's literally crazy. And thank God people are posting about it on Facebook. So, if they didn't do that, we wouldn't have any idea what's going on. Everyone's posting on Facebook like, hey, did you see the sky? Like, yeah, I can see the sky. but it's wild. I'm sure you guys deal with this with the forest fires and the brush fires you got out there, but it's pretty nutty right now. I never seen anything like it.
Yeah, no, some days are better than others, depending on where the fires are. You just got to kind of avoid it and, do the best you can to be able to breathe. But otherwise, you're healthy, your family's healthy, everybody's good.
I'm living good, man. I'm living a good life.
Good.
I'm a sober guy now. I got 5 years sobriety, so I'm living healthy. I got my, I try to live in a spiritual type way. I still have that, Jersey grind to me, but I just try to stay, level keeled as much as possible and, eat good, go to the gym, stay on top of the things I need to stay on top of, and that keeps me at peace. And when you're at peace, life tends to be a little better.
Yeah. Sober 5 years. That's quite an accomplishment. Is that part of what brought you to kind of a spiritual outlook or?
So the thing with sobriety is sobriety isn't really about drugs and alcohol. Sobriety is, alcoholism and drug addiction is a disease of the mind. Alcohol and drugs is just a symptom. So not drinking and being sober are two very different things. Sobriety is like a place of spirituality where you have faith in a higher power and you believe that no matter what is going on in your life, you're going to get through it. Okay. As long as you don't pick up a drink or a drug. So when you put, when you have faith in something bigger than you, it really takes the worry out of my life.
Yeah.
I have less stress. I have to figure if God got me here for a reason. And if I haven't figured out what that reason for is now, then I probably won't ever. And I figured out it's to carry the message, to other alcoholics and people afflicted with drug addiction. So as long as I stay, where I feel I'm needed, my life's easy. And when I start to stray, then my life gets difficult. And I realize when I try to take control of my life gets difficult. When I stay out of the way of my life and I just let it happen like it's supposed to, then everything's peace and love,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, that is evident in the way that you engage with me online, because a lot of people who come from different points of view or watch different news sources or whatever, they immediately come with their dukes up. And you have this really great way of sharing your differences without being, how do they say it? Sharing how you disagree without being disagreeable, but so I really respect that about you. But one thing I was curious about, and feel free to tell me to fuck off, it's none of my business, but what brought you to that point of feeling like you needed to get sober, you needed to be rid of that in your life? Was there a certain breaking point or?
Yeah, so it was March 31, 2018. And it came in the form of my daughter, saying that she didn't want to be with me no more. And it was the realization at that moment that, I hadn't done a good job as a father. I was the rock in my daughter's life. Even being afflicted with drug addiction, I was always the more stable one, if you can imagine that, And it was at that moment where my daughter said, I don't want to be with you anymore. You've been telling me for a long time now you're going to change, and I just don't believe you. I'm too young to even know what this is. I'm just going to stay with mom. And I just pictured her literally looking at her phone, needing me at some point in my life and realizing that she didn't have her father there and she was alone. And that is the exact feeling I had growing up. And that was the moment where I said, I need to make a permanent change within myself, because these quick fixes, these outside fixes, these temporary fixes ain't going to do it no more. And it was at that moment that, I really committed to a program of sobriety and gave my life over to Alcoholics Anonymous. Up until that point, I'd spent 15 years in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it wasn't working for me, for various reasons. But, that was the moment where it really, changed for me when I thought of her. I was in a hotel, and I literally was supposed to pick her up and take her to the movies, and I couldn't make it to the movies without going in that hotel room and getting high while leaving her in the car. And that's the reality of who I had become. And that was the reality of who her father was. And I didn't want that for her, and so that was the moment that changed. Then as I got into it, I seen, how much God had played a part in my life and how lucky I was to be where I was, and that my life really had a purpose. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand, growing up, why I had all these things that I didn't like about myself. But now when I use them in sobriety, it all makes sense. I'm able to use my life to help other people. So I found meaning, through sobriety. It's funny. The one thing that hurt me the most is the one thing that helps me the most now. I think that's, true with a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like kryptonite. It can be your greatest asset or your greatest, weakness or what have you. So you mentioned your daughter. How old is she, and how's your relationship with her now?
My daughter's 19. We're so close. She's everything to me, and she's so much like me, except for the one thing she doesn't have is I don't see that disease in her. Thank God for that, because it would be difficult for me to have to raise someone like me. So thank God I don't have to do that with her. But she's a lot of fun. She's a Jersey girl, and we laugh a lot. She's always with me. She lives with me, and life's really good. Life's really good, thank God. And as long as I stay sober, that's how it'll be.
Yeah.
But believe me, if there's a moment I don't answer the phone, she'll text me, "Where are you? Why are you not answering the phone?" A lot of damage was done through those years, so I got to stay on top of my game. For me and for her.
You sound like you almost approach your sobriety like an athlete. I've seen you talk a little bit about you working out and stuff. Hearing you talk about your sobriety, you're approaching it like an athletic endeavor. It's a challenge. You embrace it.
It's funny you say that, because I use analogies a lot with people I sponsor, and I use the analogy of a boxer. The first thing you learn as a boxer is a left jab. You don't stop working on a left jab because, all of a sudden now you're Floyd Mayweather. You got to continually to work at it. When it comes to the disease of alcoholism, it doesn't take time off. This isn't cancer. This is a disease of the mind. It's not a physical disease where you could say, okay, it's not in you no more. So I'm always alcoholic. I will die alcoholic. So I never know when I'm going to need my program. I never know when I'm going to be faced with an opportunity to use drugs, or something might happen where it could spiral me out of control. So I always have to be, prepared for that moment. And if I don't treat it like an athlete treats, going into the NBA finals or whatever it may be, I'm in trouble. I have to work at it constantly, because if not, it's just waiting for me to come back to it. It doesn't go away. I only keep it at remission because I stay so active in my sobriety.
So you've already talked about, I was going to ask another question. You've already talked a little bit about this. I was going to ask you, what's important to you? You talked about your daughter. You've talked about your sobriety. What are some of the other things that you value the most? Your values, when I say your values, what comes to mind? What's high on your list?
So the biggest value I have now is using my life for a purpose. That's the number one thing. My sobriety is a gift, and sobriety is a gift that is not to be taken. It's to be given, so that's the number one thing I value, is using my life experiences to help others. The other thing is, trying to, in sobriety, I get to, deal with people on a human level and in sobriety, I don't have to deal. I've learned, when you say I have respect, I learned how to talk to people of different races, cultures, religions, political views, and we keep those to the side because we have a common goal. We seem to have lost that in the world, so if somewhere on the line of doing this righteous thing of trying to help people get sober, you could make some differences, in other people, it'd be great to do that. We're in such a volatile time in this world. It used to not be like that. You used to be able to disagree with people and still get along. It's not the case anymore. It's like if someone disagrees with you, it's like all of a sudden we got to be enemies or something,
Well, you're proving the opposite of that. You're proving that you can disagree. We've certainly had our disagreements, but I really appreciate hanging out with you, whether it's just stuff we're typing, to each other or doing something like this. I really appreciate it. And you can bet your ass next time I'm in Jersey or Brooklyn or wherever, I'm gonna let you know in advance. Because I was going to say we're going to go get a beer, but we're not going to get a beer. We're going to go get a soda.
You can get a beer. I'll drink a Red Bull. And it's funny, when you're in the bar drinking Red Bull, all the drunk people are telling you, those things are going to kill you, man. Those things are going to kill you.
That's funny.
Kind of like a drunk guy in Atlantic City telling you how the Red Bull is going to kill you. He just lost 10 grand at the craps table and he's sucking down his fifth Jack and Coke,
I thought you weren't going to tell people about that. I'm just kidding. Yeah, you just described my Saturday night. I'm kidding. So you're someone, you certainly think a lot about certain political issues. You care a lot about certain social issues. I I was curious, over the course of your life, how did you start to develop your, your political leanings now, and where you stand on different issues? How did that start to develop for you?
It's funny. It comes from life experience. I didn't grow up learning much about politics. My mother was always like a right to lifer. We were church people, but that was never like big in my life. We didn't really talk about race, religion, politics, and that thing because, where we grew up in Central Jersey, it was like most people were the same. Most of the town was like blue collar white people. We just played outside. If there were people different, we really didn't talk about it. Everyone was about the same back then. So I didn't really know about like other, types of people or other religions and things of that nature. We didn't grow up like that. I think but back when we were kids, it was more like Catholic Jewish was like the jokes and stuff like that. You had the Monmouth Heights development was the Jewish development. Marlboro was the Jewish town. Manalapan was the Catholic town, and it was just different. But then through life experiences, and growing up, and then a lot of it, came when as I got older and news, seeing what was going on in the world and just seeing, how the divisiveness started, and just seeing, the direction that the country was going. It's almost as if now, Corey, I think people are so volatile because people are so forced to take a stand now. Like everything's jammed down everyone's throat. We didn't grow up like that. You could just be a kid. Kids can't even be kids now. Everybody got to take a stand on something. And if you take a stand on the left, you're this. If you take a stand on your right, you're this. If you want someone in the bathroom, he's suing. If you don't let him in the bathroom, he's suing. Everybody's forced now to be somebody. It's brought politics is so mainstream that even my kids, unfortunately, had to get involved in it. COVID brought a lot of things to the table. When people started seeing what was going on in schools and being, told, no, you have to take this shot or you have to wear this mask or you can't go here. People started to say, like, wait a minute. Like I'm really not in control of my life anymore. It was happening. People were just blind to it. Now it's just, people are really into politics now more than I think than ever.
You make a really good point because when the vaccines started coming out, I got 3 kids. One of my kids, the older of the 2 boys, the middle one, he it wasn't like he was against taking the shot. His position initially was just, I just want to wait. It hasn't been approved by FDA. I just want to wait. But to your point, what happened was other people in our family, including me, like I had a strong reaction against it because I really wanted him to get the vaccine, but we didn't treat him right. We like, kind of tried to make him feel guilty and made him feel stupid for even thinking that way. And, and I was part of the problem. And to your point, like what that did was it forced him to take a stand on something, and he dug his heels in that much more because, all the people that were telling him to take the shot were being assholes about it. So it almost forced him to take a stand on it, as opposed to what I think his initial outlook was like, hey, I don't want to be a science experiment. Let me just wait and see. I'm young. I'm not taking unnecessary risks in the first place. So, let me just see how it plays out and let me see if it, passes the FDA. That was his initial stance. He was more open-minded to it, but because everybody beat him up over it, he was like, fuck you, leave me alone. Then he took a much stronger stance on it. So I think a lot of times we do more harm than good by forcing everybody into camps. It's like, I read a story today about different companies like Target and Walmart putting up, pride T-shirts or whatever, and it's like, I don't know, they should be able to like have stuff if people feel proud about being gay or whatever. Like they should be able to go into Walmart and buy a T-shirt about it. It shouldn't become like that big of an issue, but. I was curious also, would you?
So it's funny you say that. I want to touch on that. The thing with that, Corey, is it's not that people have a problem with gay. Right? I have 3 gay nieces, right? Now, I don't know if they're gay. They're gay now. Let me say that. They're gay now. And are they truly gay, or are they gay because they are using it to fit in, find comfort? I don't want to say too much about them because, I don't know who will listen, right? But, I found comfort in drugs, right? Some people find comfort in things for a lot of reasons. Are they truly gay, or is it just a way for them to fit in? I have a funny feeling 2 of my nieces will be married with kids, personally. I don't think it's a forever thing, right? So I don't have no problem, with people experimenting, living life. However, the thing is, like, when I go to a sporting event, right, I don't want to see BLM. When I go to Target, I just want to go and shop without having things thrown in my shirt. I don't want to have to be involved in politics everywhere. People just want to be left alone is what it is. It's not that people have a problem with gay. It's like now now it's like, well, I don't want to deal with this here. You understand what I'm saying? Like it's just getting thrown in everyone's faces everywhere. And people are just starting to be like, yo, like it started like with the vaccine. You're telling me what I have to do. You're telling me I have to feel like this. You're telling me I have to let this happen. I don't want to. And now because I don't want to, you call me a racist. You call me a bigot. You're calling me, a sexist. You're calling me all these things. And people are just getting pissed off. So now every time something happens, everybody has a reaction. It's like when my father used to come in, we're already tense the second his car pulls up because we're so used and so programmed to what's going to happen when he walks in the door. People are just on edge because everything's so political. People don't want politics everywhere they go. It's just like it's making people just be mad all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't think I fully agree with what you're saying, but I will say this, like I'm trying to relate it to some of my own experience. And like, if I go to the grocery store, for example, I'm just going there to pick up some apples, right. Whatever, celery, whatever. I'm going there to get some soda. I don't know. I don't want my trip to the grocery store to become about, some 20-foot Let's Go Brandon flag being waved in my face,
I agree with you too.
Yeah.
I agree with it on both ways. Like I agree with it on both sides. I don't want politics anywhere in a lot of places, either side. I don't like January 6th, but I also don't like Antifa. I'm with you. I don't want it on either side. I don't think either side's right or wrong. I believe people should live the life the way they want. Everyone should be left alone. If you want to be gay, if you want to be transsexual, if you want to be straight, you want to marry your brother. Me personally, you should be left alone to do what you want. I don't have a problem with how people choose to live their life. I'm just saying that people are just being like, everyone's labeled now. It's like the label society.
I was curious if you would label yourself a certain way. Like, are you a hardcore Trump supporter? Are you hardcore Fox News watcher? Or hardcore anything? Or you lean a certain way? And how would you identify yourself?
I'm definitely more on the Fox side. I'm definitely less a Trump guy than I was because he's really starting to, he's just crazy. I definitely agree with him a lot. I'm probably more a DeSantis guy than anybody. If I had to pick one, that's probably who I go with. I think he's more how I would say my politics align. It's definitely more on the Republican side. I'm pretty socially like easygoing with certain things, but I get why people aren't. You know what I mean? I grew up going to the limelight and stuff like that. All the stuff that people are doing don't bother me. Gay and all that. We used to have the gay pride parades. Like that stuff don't bother me. But I'm definitely more on the Republican side, the DeSantis side. I'm not a big fan of like the MSNBC or the CNN, or the View, or those types of those programs.
What are some of the things that somebody like a Trump or a DeSantis, it sounds like you gravitate more towards, say that you agree with, or positions that you agree with? And then what are some of the things that you might hear on a program like The View or MSNBC that you really disagree with?
The COVID stuff was a big thing. Here in New York, we had parades for nurses, and then the next day said, get a vaccine or we're firing you. Now, I don't believe any of the signs. I don't believe the mask worked. I don't believe the vaccine worked. Like when you're telling me the vaccine is going to cure it and it doesn't, you're telling me that a mask really doesn't stop it from spreading, but I got to wear it everywhere. I don't believe in taking away people's freedoms. I never remember a time in this country where healthy people were quarantined in the house to the point where like you couldn't even go to a public park. That kind of stuff. I'm definitely not for any of the stuff that's being, put on in the schools, whether it be, I don't know so much everything about critical race theory. I know a little bit about it, but, like even like a lot of the stuff with like, the women in sports. I'm not a big fan of the transgender in sports. That stuff, the books in the libraries, a lot of that stuff, I'm really not for. A lot of the racial stuff that's going on and stuff like that. I just tend to think in like Florida, for instance, they got it right on a lot of issues. Like I don't really want my kids in school other than to learn reading, math, and arithmetic. I don't really see why a fourth grade teacher would be talking to a 7-year-old about anything. I get it. Some of these things are difficult, like you can't talk to your parents about it, but I don't think the fourth grade teacher is the play. I don't even know why that's even a conversation to me. If you're talking to a fourth grader about things like that, that's just weird, so A lot of that stuff probably more aligns with how I feel than, and then there's everything's going on now, legal immigration and, all this stuff that's going on. It's a wild time in this world.
Yeah, yeah. No, and listen, I think some of that is perception because a lot of those conversations like teaching, sex ed in third grade or second grade or whatever, it wasn't really going on in the first place, but I think people reacted to it because like a kid shows up who has two dads or two moms. It's almost like, oh, I can't say that I actually have two moms. And that second grader is all of a sudden really confused. That's the context I think it would come up. Or teachers, history teachers feeling like, wait, can we not teach about slavery? Can we not teach about, what happened to prompt some of the civil rights marches and stuff? Do we have to take Toni Morrison off the bookshelves in high school? So I think what a lot of people are reacting to, and I think this is what you're reacting to, is the excesses of somebody they disagree with. So where I would disagree with the excesses of overreaching and saying, no, you can't teach, I'm being hyperbolic now, but you can't teach about slavery. Like that would be an overreach, right? But not being able to teach about Rosa Parks, not being able to say that she wasn't allowed to sit in the front of the bus, and that was a big issue. That was actually a discussion. That was actually, it was specified in a curriculum. I think that's an excess. Where you and I would also agree, though, I'm sure, is that excesses of other people who have other issues where, they want to block a certain speaker that comes from like the conservative legal movement, a certain speaker coming on a college campus and they want to block that speaker because
horrible.
Yeah. So that's where I think you and I would agree. But I think what we're
100%.
reacting.
We should be learning American history. We should, but we also can't rewrite history, right? No. Like we can't say like, well, okay, well, now we have to take, I don't know why we have Confederate statues in this country. 500,000 people died. We fought the Confederate. That'd be like putting an Adolf Hitler statue. I don't know why these things were ever up. I'm cool with. But Christopher Columbus. I mean, we lived in a period of time in this world where there was slavery. There was slavery since the beginning of time. That doesn't go away. And it doesn't make, it doesn't, am I going to take away all the things they did because they had slaves in a period when slavery was legal? I'm not saying it was right. That's where people get screwed up. People think because we say it happened that we're okay with it. You could be both. You could not be okay with it, but it was a part of history. And now it's like, because somebody did this, we have to write off everything they did. And that's the stuff I'm against. Rosa Parks did more to help people than I think some of the black leaders today. She should be talked about, people like that. But it's like you said, the excesses. Like if somebody wants to go to a college campus and speak, let them speak. This is what America, that's the number one thing of America, freedom of speech. You can't do that in other countries. We've gotten away from that. When I see like Mike Pence, who I'm not such a fan of, go to a college and they turn around and walk out, it's so disrespectful to me. The same as they did it to the same as they quiet the same as they did with Eric Adams. Like, I don't even know, like I would never do something like that. Governor Murphy spoke at my son's college at Rutgers. I'm not a huge fan. Am I going to boo the guy? It's horrible that stuff's going on. Like we've lost the ability to listen to others, and hear what they're having to say. Because I might not agree with a lot of things that other people talk about, but I also didn't grow up where they grew up. And I wasn't taught the things they were taught. If you go to Israel and Palestine, they have very strong opposing views. They might not even know some of the things, why they feel that way, but that's how they're taught. So what are you going to tell them? Like it's very hard to get people to see or listen to a point of view when it's been embedded in them since the beginning of time. Like this is how things are, so if we can't listen to one another, we can't go. We're not getting anywhere, and that's why we have what we have, today.
So, speaking of that, I wanted to go back to like what prompted this. Some of our conversations. A few times, it's often on Facebook. We're both on Facebook, so oftentimes you're dropping a comment on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm a Facebook troll. I like to start stuff on Facebook.
I always love hearing from you, man, because I'm like, oh man, he's going to make me think. He's going to make me work for this. I genuinely.
You want to know the worst one I've ever had on Facebook? There was a woman who posted about she had an extra breast milk in her fridge if anyone wanted it. And I said, lady, who the hell would want your breast milk for their baby? Oh my God, you have no idea the war that went on. And I was getting messages from both sides. People call me horrible names, people saying that's disgusting, I would never give it to my kids. So if you want to instigate some trouble, just go on Facebook. You could get a lot of oh my God. That one went on for like a good week.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, where did I start? People got views, man, for sure. And, the social media has opened up people. And that's the other thing. When you asked me earlier how I got into this stuff, social media opened up a part of this. Back in the day, only really liberal people or African-American people really went out and protested. Now there's a lot of voices being heard because of social media. People that would normally sit quiet, you hear from now. Everyone can voice their view. So everyone's views out there.
Yeah. I have certain rules I try to stay within. Like I'll try to avoid getting into a conversation with somebody I don't have some sort of relationship with. Mm-hmm. I especially will try not to respond to somebody who doesn't even put their name to their opinions. It's like, if you want to post your opinion, you want to be part of the conversation, put your name to it, stand behind what you're saying. So, I'm just going to read one or two of these and we can decide to go over it and see if we can work it out or not. All right. So I said something, I don't know if this is my whole comment. I said, it was a whole paragraph that I wrote on Facebook not too long ago. And it was about when I hear friends refer to an entire political group or anyone they identify with that group with in bad ways, like pejorative, with pejoratives, all those MAGA, people, all those, libtards, So I wrote something about that. And I think you largely agreed with me. This is what you said. It used to be people could have different views and still be friends, or at least civil and social, but not anymore. It's a shame. I can't stand anything about Liz Cheney. Wait, hold on a second. Why can't you stand Liz Cheney? Is it just because she was on the committee?
Yeah, she's like, I can't remember everything because my memory's so shot. But she's like, I don't know, man. Her father was like a warmonger, and I just don't think she aligned with anything. Yeah, and the committee, I wasn't a big fan of the committee, to be honest with you. I wasn't a big fan of January 6th, but I wasn't a big fan of her. I think she kind of listen, you got to have some loyalty to your party. She did a lot of damage, and I don't think she aligned. I don't have I can't give you right now exact, reasons of what it was because so many, ideas going in my head, but I wasn't a big fan about how she went about her business. I don't think she should have broken with her party and went on a committee based on the fact of they disqualified people. I don't think she was the one to speak for the Republican Party in that. She had obviously a right to speak, but I don't think she was speaking for her party. I think she was just, stepping on there with her own personal agenda. I don't think she was the right person to be on that panel. I think when they, decided they weren't going to have, the people the Republicans put up, nobody should have went up from the Republican side because she gave credence to that panel based on, her view, which wasn't the view of most people in the Republican Party, not all, but, she made them be able to say, oh, we had a party of Republicans and Democrats, when in reality, it was, she was a very small sliver of, just like if AOC went on a panel, I wouldn't hold the whole Democratic Party, again, to what she had to say. She's a small fraction of that party. So I just think she gave credence, and I think a lot of it had to do with her own, personal, hatred of Trump.
Yeah. Are you open to me pushing back on that a little bit?
Push, bro, push.
Okay. So one is, Liz Cheney has a very impeccable conservative voting record in Congress. She voted, in fact, not just conservative, but with Trump over 90% of the time. She has a more conservative, voted along with Trump over 90% of the time. And some of the leaders in the party now, like Elise Stefanik up in New York, who's I think third in line in Republican leadership, she voted with him barely over 70% of the time. So Liz Cheney had a much more conservative actual voting record than some of the leaders now. The other thing that I think about the committee, a lot of folks forget that John Katko, a Republican, also a New York Republican congressman, he was charged with negotiating the terms of the committee at first. And what he put together initially, it wasn't with Pelosi. Pelosi kind of gave one of her lieutenants the opportunity to negotiate with Katko. and they found a compromise that looked a lot more like the 9/11 Commission that would have had much better representation from both Republicans and Democrats. But what happened was Kevin McCarthy he said, go negotiate it, and here's what we want. Katko basically got everything that McCarthy was asking for, but then he got pushback from his right. He got pushback from the Jim Jordans of Congress. And after Katko went and got everything McCarthy asked him to get, he said, no, forget it. We're not going to participate in this thing. So then that's when Pelosi stepped in and said, okay, she was a speaker at that time. She crafted the outlines of what the committee was going to look like. And even then they had the opportunity to put Republicans on the committee. But what he did was he put guys that were like Jim Jordan on the committee that were, under suspicion of participating or at least aiding the insurrectionists. And she's like, look, we can have Katko on the committee, we can have Cheney, we can have Kinzinger, but we can't have people who aided insurrectionists on the committee. So it looked like it was one-sided. In a way, it's kind of a fair criticism, but if McCarthy just did what he said he was going to do and take Katko, the Republicans' negotiated terms, it would have been a much more balanced committee. And still they had, everybody wants to say that like Kinzinger and Cheney aren't real Republicans. Both of those guys had over 90% voting records, 92 to 94%. I forget which one was which. I'm not saying
they weren't real Republicans. I'm just saying they weren't the right people for that panel based on, their feelings towards the president.
It was just they both. I forget if Kinzinger voted for him actually, no. Now that I remember, both Cheney and Kinzinger voted for Trump.
But let me ask you this:
yeah,
where are they now? Doesn't where they are now say all it needs to be said about how Republicans feel about their participation in that panel?
It's more a reflection of today's Republican Party, which I don't think is a reflection of real conservatism. I think it's more of a. It's the party doesn't represent so much a set of values and principles so much as like what I think of as oppositional politics. We don't really care about X, Y, and Z. I think Cheney and Kinzinger have clear conservative principles, but they didn't buy into if they're against it, I'm for it. If they're for it, I'm against it. Oppositional politics. So that's why there's not a clear set of beliefs. A year from now, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like DeSantis is on exactly the opposite side of some things that he's on now. For example, when he ran for governor the first time of Florida, he ran as a small business conservative, as a business-friendly conservative. But some of his legislation, because it was popular within the Fox News version of Republicanism, he ended up becoming very anti-business. Like, for example, just to give you an example, I know you feel differently about vaccines and masks and stuff than I do, but here's the thing. Remove the masks and the vaccines as a specific thing. If Governor, in my case, Governor Newsom were to come to me as a business owner and tell me what I can and can't do in terms of my employees, I'd be like, go fuck yourself. Like, you don't know my business. You don't know my customers. You don't know what I need to provide for my customers. So if in my case, a lot of our customers for C-Spot Go, they were saying, we're not going to have anybody in our house. We're not going to have anybody in our building who who's not wearing a mask. So I told my guys, listen, guys, however you feel about it in your own time, that's up to you. But if you're going to, this estate, or if you're going to this building, you got to wear a mask. And if Newsom said to me that I can't even say that to my employees, I'd be like, go fuck yourself. You don't know my business. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You either arrest me, you either sue me, and I'll take you to the Supreme Court because I know what you're doing is wrong. And that's ultimately what DeSantis did to companies. He said,
but in reality, we had places like, Attila Gym in Jersey, where they said, we don't need you to wear a mask. We don't need you to do this. And they were arrested for just the opposite of what you're saying. They didn't have control over their business, right?
I would have. So in a weird way, I wasn't as skeptical about the effects of wearing masks. Like it was an inconvenience for me, but it wasn't such an impingement on my freedom. I thought it's a one little thing I could do if it makes people feel better. But if a business said, this is our stance, you don't need to wear a mask in our place of business, that's their business. That's what.
Were you allowed to,
that's their domain.
Were you allowed to do that in California? If you were to say, we want everyone in here and you don't have to wear a mask, were you allowed to do that in California? No.
I don't think, I think LA County led the way and said businesses don't have that, they don't have that option. You have to wear a mask wherever in a public place.
Aren't you kind of just disagreeing with what you just said? That's the opposite of what you said, right?
No, I'm saying that business owners and individuals should have the freedom to dictate whether they're wearing a mask or not wearing a mask.
But they weren't able to in California.
No, I know. I understand. And I disagree with that too. I disagree with the illiberalism one way or the other.
You know who wasn't wearing a mask in businesses in California, right?
What?
You know who wasn't wearing a mask in businesses in California, right? You know where I'm going with that?
Wait, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Nancy Pelosi got a haircut, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. No, so I disagree with putting the reins on. If a business or a church for that matter wanted to, I felt like, listen, John MacArthur is a big pastor in our valley, in Santa Clarita Valley. And he felt one way about it when the pandemic started. Then about a year into it, he took a very, very different stance and said, no, people are coming to church. Nobody's wearing a mask. Sit close together, sing. We're going to worship. And for him, it was
and nothing happened. Do you realize that?
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Right.
A lot of people at John's church got sick at a much higher rate, and several of my friends died that I don't think should have died. So I at the same time,
I lost my father-in-law, first month to COVID. My AA sponsor, I lost to COVID as well, very early on. And it was sad. You don't even, these people go in the hospital, that's it. You don't even never talk to them again. You have no say in their treatment. You have no say in what's going on. You were banned from the hospital. It was really crazy, crazy time, But I remember here when gyms opened up, we went in, we're like, why were you closed? What were we even closed for? I think it's like you said earlier, the forcing people to do things, people push back on it. And when your government's telling you, you have to do this, you have to do this, and you don't want to do it, that caused a big uproar. So you had places in Florida where you had a governor that was going to say, you know what, this is what the people want, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And people were happy for that. And I have so many people that were in Florida like, bro, it's great here. It's great here. And I don't recall any of these places that had these super lockdowns having any better results than the places that didn't. I think New Hampshire was the worst place to be. Florida wasn't leading the pack in deaths and hospitalizations. They weren't leading the pack at all. And there was no mask mandates or no vaccine mandates. So the science says that, the mandates didn't really work. That's just science. That's not my opinion. I think science dictated, we had it here in New York. Everyone was wearing a mask. In the first round, you remember the first round came and everyone was getting COVID? And they're like, but everyone's home. How's everyone getting COVID? I just think it's a virus. It's like a virus in your house. Somebody gets a stomach bug. One person gets it. 4 people don't get it. It's just hard to control, I think it just scared a lot of people. But then what happened, Corey, was government got so powerful in the ability to tell you what to do. It scared people.
Yeah.
They didn't realize how little freedom you have, that the government could just step in and say, it's a state of emergency. Like in New Jersey, right? He banned summer rentals. Why can't I go rent a house down the shore and sit with my family on a dock if I want to? What is banning a rental do? How does that stop COVID from happening? It doesn't. So there was such an intrusion in life that people just went buck wild. Now, if you were for it, then great. But people who weren't for it were like, this is insane. I couldn't go rent a house in Belmar. I spend all my summers down the shore, and all of a sudden you tell me I'm not allowed to rent the house. And how about the guy that needs to rent the house? They just killed everything. In California, there was you couldn't go to docks. You couldn't go public places. When can't you go to a park? We couldn't go to a park here. I remember there was a graduation. So my kids had the proms, I had kids in high school during this. You couldn't go to wrestling matches. You could wrestle. So you would sit on the bench with a mask on, but when you wrestled, you could take the mask off, but then you had to put the mask on.
It's like going into a restaurant. Yeah.
You had to wear a mask to sit down, but once you sit down, you could take it off. I'm like, what are we doing here? We look like a bunch of jackasses. It was just so ridiculous, some of this stuff, And people started being like, I don't want the government in control of my life because the government doesn't know what they're doing. The government's the worst to run things,
I don't necessarily agree with that because I put like a 42-cent stamp or whatever stamps cost, and it gets to you in 3 or 4 days. I don't know. I'm not as cynical about whether the government can do anything or not. Hey, government taught us pretty well. We had good teachers. I don't know if you were in Doc Hussey's class in English, or, we had some really good Sandy Van Dyke and drama, and Coach Terrell. We had some good teachers, man. So the government can do, or cops. Cops are part of the government. I know some guys that are great cops.
Boot camp with Oscar Gamble and Jim.
Oh, is it? Yeah. That's awesome. So just to clarify, again, like I think some of the numbers in terms of numbers of deaths from red states to blue states, you're technically correct, but in terms of percentages of people, I think you're incorrect. So meaning
that's like 50-50. I'll take it.
Well, for example, there are less people in North Dakota. It's a pretty red state.
But it was per 100,000. I think it was per 100,000.
So that's what I'm saying.
They're separated. I get it. There's more distance between people. I get it.
Yeah. But
you really think the mask work? Mask. Hold on. Let me give you some background. Okay. So that mask that my daughter kept in her car for 6 months, that was not a new N95 mask. You really think that kept her safe?
This is what comes to mind. If I'm going into open heart surgery, or one of my loved ones is going into open heart surgery, and I look in the operating room and the doctors and nurses aren't wearing masks, I'm going to be really afraid.
Right, but they're wearing N95 zipped up around their face. Now look at the masks people were wearing. They weren't wearing masks. They were wearing bandanas over their face.
Yeah. So it
wasn't about a mask. Remember, it was putting something over your mouth. If I put panties, I could have went into a place. It wasn't about that's the thing, Corey. It wasn't about we were wearing medical devices. It was just wear something over your face.
I'll tell you what.
I would get a mask. I would cut the inside out and walk around in it. And then people are walking around in face guards. Like, what? That's a mask now? It was crazy.
I have a proposal. I think you and I should run for president, vice president, a unity ticket. And we're going to run on the campaign of we're going to impose on everybody that you got to wear panties on your face.
But now let me ask you, who's going to be president? Who's going to be vice president?
We could, you know what? We'll have a wrestle off.
Flip a coin?
You would go back to Terrell and have a wrestle off. What didn't you we were on a wrestling team together, weren't we?
No, I was only in 7th, 8th grade with Mr. Arbeitman. Remember him? No, I was too fat. So I was too fat in high school.
Oh man, Arbeitman. Yeah, I remember Arbeitman. And what was the other guy's name? He loved when Davy Lee Roth was coming out with the I'm just a gigolo. What was it?
I don't remember. But let me tell you something. You know who the most famous Manalapan wrestler of all time is right now, right?
Stevie Rivera?
I got to go Jay Glazier, bro.
Oh, yeah. No, so Jay was a year ahead of us. Yeah. And Jay was the reason that I ended up getting my varsity letter. I wrestled him off for 119 as a junior. And the next day I beat him. It was like a 1-point match, We were very, very close. We went to wrestling camp together.
Was he wiggling his fingers in the air during the match? Remember he used to wiggle his fingers?
He always used to do these like crazy things to try to distract. He was more sizzle than steak. I got very serious my junior year and I beat him out. The next day he comes in with a big leg brace. He was trying to, it was hurt. I'm like, whatever, Jay, I beat you fair and square.
Unbelievable. Well, he's doing good for himself now, man.
He's doing great, man. Yeah, he's doing great. But I was curious, have you read up on the what McCarthy and Biden just negotiated in terms of the debt ceiling?
I don't get into the money. I don't understand the whole thing. We print money, we owe money, we get money. I don't get into all that because you know what? I do recall the debt ceiling going up when Trump was in office too. Doesn't it always go up? Like, isn't it just how it goes? I don't get caught up in all that. The next generation. You know what it is, Corey? We hear the same things every year. Since I'm a kid, Social Security they're gonna take away your Social Security. They're gonna take away your unemployment. We're gonna be in debt. I don't really know enough about it, and I've heard it so much. I'm like kind of whitewashed from it. Like I don't even listen to it no more. I didn't really get into too into that. Everybody's gonna scream and yell, and at the end of the day, a lot of it's just political points. They're gonna sign a deal and they're gonna move on. I don't know enough about it. To be honest with you.
Well, the reason I thought it was it was indicative of a larger issue is it indicated how Biden has been running his administration. Like a lot of friends I know who definitely lean right or watch Fox News mostly, they just talk about Biden as like walking around and not having, cognitive, he's cognitively losing it. And
well, he's walking around on a good day. On a normal day, he's stumbling. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but if you look at his first 2.5 years in office, the administration's actually gotten a lot done. This latest debt deal, raising the debt ceiling, is just one of them. But in particular, and this is what has caught my attention over these last two plus years, is that it's a lot of bipartisan legislation that's passing. For example, I don't know where you stand on guns and stuff like that, but it was John Cornyn, a Republican senator from Texas, who led the negotiations to get, I know it was very modest what they got done in terms of gun legislation. It was really more about health care or mental health. But they got something. It was the first anything that they got done on gun legislation in almost 30 years. The other thing they got done was a bipartisan infrastructure deal that might affect you and your work. People don't realize it, but like when you see, highways getting, built and bridges getting fixed, that's part of the bipartisan infrastructure
deal. Isn't that
deal.
Always? And it doesn't in every administration. I feel they always pass an infrastructure. They always pass a debt ceiling. They always pass those things. That's the only thing they ever get done.
No. I disagree with that because. Listen,
you're going to say that a lot today, I think.
I'm not a Trump fan, but Trump always had like infrastructure week and he made a big deal out of it, but they never got anything passed. But what caught my attention at the beginning of this debt ceiling deal, it wasn't so much the legislation itself, because I think you're right. At the end of the day, it's a lot of theatrics. I knew something was going to get done. They weren't going to, send the U.S. economy into the abyss, just to make a show of how much they hate each other. At the end of the day, what Biden did was he didn't have the leaders of the Democratic House caucus in there. It was him and McCarthy, and that was it. He didn't have the leaders of the Senate in there. It was him and McCarthy, and that was it. They figured it out.
That's how they're supposed to see. This is how it's supposed to run. I don't see. I'm not one of those like the other side can never win. When Obama jumped in and helped the auto dealerships out, and everyone was screaming, "Why are we screaming and yelling? Because he's a Democrat and he did something." I'm okay with that stuff. Like who said it? Elections have consequences, right? I'm not going to like everything the president does, but I'm not going to go against everything he does either, because that's how we get where we are. We got to give the guy the ability. I don't have to like 90% of what he does, but I hope 10% of it at least helps the country in some way, shape, or form. I'm not a big fan of what he's doing with oil or the southern border, but if he could get something done, it's better than nothing, right? We can't just be obstructionists. Some people just want to be obstructionists to everything, don't do anything. And then you just have this logger jam and nothing gets done. And that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. That's refreshing
it's
to hear.
Voices from the left and right that just kill everything. It used to be you had that, but there was the more moderate middle, But now, listen, in fairness, that deal is getting hammered from both sides, the AOCs and the hardcore Republicans. Both sides are having a problem. I don't think they got 100% of either side to vote for it, but they got it done, and that's how it should get done. Listen, I have to assume that if there's a Democratic president and they pass a debt deal, there's going to be more in it I don't like than like. And I'm going to assume if there's a Republican president, there's going to be more in there that I like than don't like. And that's just how it's got to be.
It depends who the Republican is. I got a Republican in our day. We're a purple district, but we got a representative in the House of Representatives. That's he's a MAGA Republican. He doesn't represent the purple part of us. He represents
that's why you live where you do in California. You get the best of both worlds. I get it now.
We're very closely divided. We're not like a lot of LA where it leans very, very blue. We're very purple. He won his first election in 2020, our representative in Congress, by 333 votes. That's like out of almost 350,000 that voted, less than 1/10 of 1% he won by. And yet he votes again and again and again with the most extreme wing of the Republican Party.
Again, these elections are getting very close, right? Aren't they?
Well, some of them are. A lot of them are.
Remember the hanging chads in Florida? It's seems like that's a lot now.
Yeah. All right. So I got another couple questions, and then we'll start to wrap up. So this is what's called my TPNR question: talk politics and religion without killing each other. What do you think each of us can do to be better able to share space with, have better conversations with, even like nurture relationships with people across our differences, people who think differently than we do, who have different beliefs than we do, who get their news from different sources than we do? How can we do better at talking politics and religion without killing each other? Or is it even possible?
Yeah, it's places like this, man. It's like, what do they tell you? Like when they train dogs, don't bring another dog into your dog's territory because they're defensive. If you put people from different walks of life in a neutral place and they have a common thing, they tend to understand. You could have differences with people when it's not so extreme, right? Like you hear, like, you take this person away from this group and he acts this way, but you put him in this group and he acts that way. Like you hear this a lot. So people are just, I think, I'm going to be honest, it's getting extreme now, but I think that the natural course of life, takes over. I think the more integration of society takes over, these things tend to go away. Like, it's crazy. I don't know if we're more racist now or more angry now than we were. I think things go in secular. I think things have to get really bad sometimes to get really good. I think more positive, neutral voices have to come out. Everything's just so extreme right now, like you have like people that like, so you have these hardcore Democrats with reparations. Well, they lived in a period of time when they weren't allowed to use, water fountains. So I get where they're coming from, but you have kids today that didn't, so I think we just have to get to away from the extremes and we get back to being normal where everyone can have a difference of opinion, and then we start to see, like, if we measure, what do we measure society by? Do we measure, the Black culture by, reparations, or do we measure the Black culture by there's a lot of success there? So it's, what are we going to use to prop up our country? Are we going to use the negative things and say the country's bad, or are we going to start getting to the positives and start saying, no, the country's not that bad? Yes, we have still ways to go, and there's a lot of flaws in this country, but it's not so bad. Look at it here. Look at it there. We're still the greatest country. I don't care what anyone says. You go to other places, we're not even having this conversation. We're not even allowed to have this conversation, So I just think that, hopefully in time, but like right now, it's just like this. It's so like it's so polarized right now, and it's making it difficult. There's becoming like a real split in this country, like I've never seen before. People are really just taking sides, and a lot of it's media driven. Politics got really big. I don't remember it being this big when we were little. I'll be honest with you. I don't. I just think, like I said earlier, everybody's being forced into a corner. Like my kids are in school. They're at that age. My daughter wants to go on the swim team, and now there's somebody that decides, or whatever, they're born or whatever, they transition. They're a boy. Now he wants to swim in the swim team with her. Well, now you're making me get involved, and now I'm a bigot. You know what I mean? So people are just, everything's getting pushed to the nth degree here because society has gotten to a place. I forget who said it. I don't know if it was Stalin, somebody in one of these places that they said, you don't even have to bother America. America will take care of itself just by the freedoms. The freedoms are getting so much that we're just starting to, it's starting to take away from the things that, we got to, as fundamentals. Like you said before, we have the freedom to protest, but the freedom of protest is now taking away the freedom of speech, where like a Milo can't speak at a college campus because everyone's going to scream and yell at him. Or, we just had a Supreme Court justice, scream down at a college. Like, how did we get to a place like that? Like, we got to let people be heard and hear opposing voices, and if we don't allow people to do that, if we don't want to listen, then you're never going to get nowhere. We lost the ability to listen.
Yeah, and we don't have to disagree, but I can try to understand you a little bit better. And even if you can't, even if I'm not persuaded, at least I can understand a little bit better. So I think that's a really good point. And I'm maybe a little bit more hopeful because I do see you brought up colleges and people being screamed down at colleges and stuff. What I'm seeing and what I'm starting to see, whether it's Stanford or University of Chicago or places around the country, that they're pushing back on that and saying
that's
no.
What's happening. It's getting pushed back on, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's got to burst the dam to be rebuilt. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, didn't we have this go on like in the 60s and the 70s? Like, I don't think this is the first time in society we went through this. We're just going through it now, but I think there's been other periods of time where, listen, there was race wars and crime, 50 years ago. This country was in a rough place. So we're not new to this. It's just new to us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You don't have to answer this either. Do you want people to find you online? You want people to, because I know I'm going to get some comments and stuff.
Absolutely.
How can people find you online?
You go up on my Facebook, my name, John Deroian.
All right.
I don't do Instagram, but that's it. Facebook's my only really place where I do, any social media.
All right. I'm going to tag you. So repost it and all that stuff. So people, they can shout you down. You could tell
maybe Jay Glazer will listen.
Maybe
Fox Sports or something.
There you go.
Did you ever go on his Facebook page?
I have, but he never got back to me. Like we used to be friends. We would go like to some like the wrestling camp together.
Go look at one of the pictures he has that he's watching a fight. He's at Sylvester Stallone's house. It's him, Sylvester Stallone, Guy Fieri, Arnold Schwarzenegger, a couple of comedians. Dolph Lundgren's there. You got to see the people he's hanging out with. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
He's in Stallone's house. You see all the Rocky pictures in the back. It's unbelievable. Sugar Ray Leonard was there.
It's awesome.
Al Pacino.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, he's not just the football guy. He's like, he got into MMA, he got into fitness, so he's kind of made a, a whole life for himself in that world. And I think over the last year or two, he's really gotten into mental health, and he discovered some things about his own journey. And, listen, for all the shit I give him, I'm really rooting for him, So last question before we wrap up. Do you have any questions for me?
So when you're out there, right, how did you come from Central Jersey, right? The views you have now, you asked me how I got to where I am. Did your views change over time, like being on the West Coast, or how did you get to be who you are?
Yeah. So I think one big thing that happened in my life is I grew up very observantly Jewish. I was in Monmouth Heights, so of course.
Monmouth Heights, man, that's right. The Jewish development.
Yeah. So no, but we went to Sons of Israel. That was the Orthodox synagogue. So I was very, very observant. My family's, my father to this day wears a yarmulke, keeps kosher. But in my late 20s, I became a Christian. So I started reading the Bible very differently. There were more books in the Bible that I was reading, the whole Jesus part of it, the New Testament. And I started with theological convictions and arrived at political positions from my theological convictions. So that was one thing that really changed the way I started viewing things, taking theology and philosophy very seriously, and then using that as a basis to arrive at decisions on a particular piece of legislation or a particular candidate. So I don't know, a lot of my friends who are Trump fans, for example, think I'm some lefty liberal. I'm really not. I'm actually more of a live and let live kind of guy when it comes to social issues. When it comes to business issues, I'm probably a little bit more conservative. But even the word conservative has like a different meaning because people think of Newsmax and OAN when they think of
word changed. The word changed over the years.
Yeah, but I'm more of balance the budgets kind of a fiscal conservative, because I got with my businesses, I got to balance my budgets, So,
that's how it used to be. You'd be socially independent and, conservative when it came to financial issues. That's how most people were back in the day.
Yeah. A lot of our friends are too. A lot of the friends who we graduated high school with, but some people just have, I have a strong reaction against Trump. I just have a really, really strong reaction against Trump and what he's done to our culture, how he's affected how we talk to each other, how we think of each other, made everything like this side and that side, and I hate you. And, the one thing that you and I are definitely not agree on is the Yankees are always going to suck. Sorry, I just can't.
Okay, so who would be your team?
My baseball team? I live and die with the Mets. I mean, it's in my blood.
So you die with the Mets, basically.
Exactly.
The greatest team in history only got one World Series. The 86 Mets might be one of the
two. Don't forget about 69. I know it was before we were born, but 69. No, I wasn't even in the womb yet. I was born bitter, man, because I was born with the Mets DNA. I was born wait till next year. Everything sucks.
So are you a Mets, Jets, Islanders guy, or are you one of those?
No.
Normally it's the Giants, the Knicks, the Rangers, and the Yankees. Normally.
I'm a little different. My brother is Mets and Jets. I'm Mets and Giants. I couldn't suffer all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at least you got the Giants to keep you good,
Yeah. So, but yeah, diehard Rangers fan, which isn't easy. This last year, they really disappointed this last year. But anyway, yeah. So Mets all the way. Mets is my team.
And now basketball. Or are you not a basketball
little bit,
guy?
I used to watch, but when I moved out to California, we were we were not financially well off when we moved out here, so I couldn't afford the cable plans that could get the New York games until the early 2000s. By that time, Ewing was gone, Starks was gone. It wasn't fun to watch them anymore. So I got out of the habit of watching basketball, but I watched a little bit of college basketball. I have some friends that went to Duke, so I watch Duke basketball. My wife's from Alabama, so I watch Auburn football, college football.
That's funny when people say my friends went to Duke. My friends all went to prison. Your friends went to Duke.
I got some friends who spent some time,
Nothing like the 94 Knicks. Nothing like the 94 Knicks.
Wow, that was a great year.
People forget, the spring of 94, you had the Rangers and the Knicks back to back. And don't forget, in the middle of that Knick game, we had OJ.
I couldn't watch the end of the game. I was so happy to be watching that game. I couldn't watch it because freaking the white Bronco. So
unbelievable.
Anyway, John, this was a ton of fun, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm so glad
to
see you and to hang out with you a little bit. I'm serious. Next time I'm back there, I'm going to give you a heads up. We'll hang out.
Please do, man.
All right.
This was a blast. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. And as always, if you dig what we're doing here, please hit that subscribe button, leave a review and comments wherever you get your podcasts, and tell a friend about talking politics and religion without killing each other. We're easy to recommend. It's www.politicsandreligion.us, www.politicsandreligion.us. Find me online at Corey S. Nathan. It's Corey with an E and S as in Sam, at Corey S. Nathan. Now go talk some politics and religion with gentleness and respect, and have a great week.